Hello, and welcome back to the Call of Duty Esports Podcast, Episode 2. Today, we're going to be talking about CWL Birmingham this past weekend, and this sort of preview CWL Stage 1 playoffs this upcoming weekend. Now, with the CWL Birmingham review, we're not really going to go too in-depth. We're going to go over final placings, issues at the event, that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go into bracket play that much. I'm going to show you the brackets and pools on your screen, or read them off out loud in case you are just listening on SoundCloud or just having the YouTube video on in the background. But yeah, so let's get started. So CWL Birmingham was a pretty fun event to spectate. It was the only European event this year, so the time zones were a little bit weird when it came to just having to get up early and watching it. I know those European guys always go through such tough times when they're watching North American events. I think they have to stay up till like 6 a.m. sometimes to watch them. So, yeah, if you were on the East Coast in North America, you had to pretty much get up around 6, 7 a.m. to watch the matches, which was not fun, but definitely worth it. Some of the matches this weekend were absolutely incredible. I know the winners finals between Rise and LG was probably the funnest match for me to watch because it was just two really solid all-around teams going back and forth and just showing how good they are at Call of Duty. Grand Finals was literally insane. I didn't actually get a chance to watch Grand Finals live because Sunday was my birthday, so I had to watch the rebroadcast, and oh my god, it was absolutely insane. I think this event really showed just how good competition is nowadays. I legit think there are 10 plus teams who can beat each other in a series. I don't think it's to the point anymore where you have just 4 teams dominating. You have those top caliber teams like Rise and LG, but there are teams who can beat those teams in series, and honestly, I wouldn't say I was surprised. So let's go ahead and start talking about the actual event itself. So as you can see on your screen right now, these are the pools for the event. I want to go ahead and thank COD Esports Pedia. I'm going to leave their link in the description. They have the best coverage when it comes to just all events, intel, roster news, all that kind of stuff when it comes to just Call of Duty esports. They're a brand of Gamepedia, and I know Gamepedia covers a bunch of other esports too, so I'm going to go ahead and leave their link in the description below. Make sure you guys go ahead and give them some love because those guys do not get enough credit for the work that they put in. Here are your pools on your screen. You have pool A, B, C, and D with the matchups between the teams. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth into these pools because I kind of want to keep this show a little bit shorter because this is going to end up coming out, I think, an hour before Hot Mic. So I want to try to keep this under an hour if possible. So you guys can actually go and watch Hot Mic, which is going to be, like I said, right after this. So, Pool A, you had Rise, Echo Fox, Cyclone, E United, and Epsilon. A really interesting scenario when it came to this pool. You had a 3-way tie between Echo Fox, Rise, and E United, and then Cyclone, the open bracket team, ended up actually coming in and beating Epsilon and E United, which caused Rise and Echo Fox to come out of your pool as the 1 and 2 seed. Big upset here for Echo Fox, coming in with a fill-in, Nagafen for Saints. I think they had a really good tournament. And I'm excited to see what they can do after Stage 1 playoffs. I'm not sure if this team is going to make any roster changes, but they definitely have the potential to sorry, I'm saying a lot. They have the potential to play better. And I think that after Stage 1, if they really grind and practice as a team, they can definitely win an event. E United end up beating Rise in this pool 3-0, but due to the loss to Cyclone, they don't make it out of pool play, and that really hurt them when it came to just how they played in the tournament. Pool B, you have TK, Rise, TK, FaZe, Unilad, and E6, with Vitality finishing last. Really interesting pool here. Again, it came down to that 3-way tie scenario between TK, FaZe, and Unilad. FaZe ended up losing to TK, Unilad ended up beating TK, and then FaZe ended up beating Unilad. Again, E6 comes out of pools. They beat Vitality, and Vitality beat Unilad. So with Unilad losing to Vitality, that 3-way tie scenario becomes non-existent anymore because they have 2 losses now, which means that TK and FaZe were the top 2 in the pool, and since TK beat FaZe, they end up coming out the 1 seed, and FaZe end up coming out the 2 seed. Pool C of Optic, Envy, Reckless, EG, and Heretics. Pretty straightforward pool here. You had your 1 seed Optic, 2 seed Envy, 3 seed Reckless, 4 seed EG, and then Heretics, the open bracket team. No really upsets in this pool. Some close series. I know the Optic Envy series was pretty close. I know the Reckless Optic series went Game 5. But other than that, it was a pretty straightforward pool. Pool D for me was the funnest pool to watch out of any of the matchups this weekend. This pool was stacked from top to bottom. You had Splice, LG, Red, Mindfreak starting out in the pool. And then you had Vast Esports, sort of a top-tier amateur team coming into the pool. Splice came out hot in this pool, man. They end up beating both LG and Red. And Splice, who was the third seed going into this pool, wasn't really expected to make it out over Red and LG. I don't know what it is, but Red seems to always struggle in pool play. I've noticed it with them this past few events. I don't think they've actually made a winner's bracket at an open event this year. So it'll definitely be interesting to see how they play at Stage 1 playoffs, starting in that open bracket, getting that sort of, second chance if they lose. But like I said, Splice comes out super hot, beats both LG and Red. LG ends up beating Red, so they end up taking that second seed over Splice. This creates your upper bracket, where you have Rise facing off against Envy, Splice versus FaZe, Optic, Echo Fox, and the TKLG. Now, I'm not going to go into these series too in depth. The Rise Envy series, although it was a 3-0, was a pretty close series. I know that the hard point was like within 20 points or something like that. This is one of the few matches that I watched this weekend because I really wanted to see how Envy stacked up against those top caliber teams. The SNE was a blowout, not even close. The CTF started out pretty close, and then Rise sort of ran away with it towards the second half. And they end up pretty much handling Envy pretty easily. Splice versus FaZe, again, a super close Game 5. I'm pretty sure FaZe ended up going down 2-0 in this series, and they had a crazy CTF comeback. And then they ended up losing in that Game 5, unfortunately. I don't know what it is. FaZe just seems to struggle winners round 1. I think they lost winners round 1 at the last 2 tournaments. So I'm not sure what is going to happen with this team at Stage 1 playoffs. But we'll go ahead and see that later in the show. Then you have Optic and Echo Fox. Again, Echo Fox, super good team. Unfortunately, I think Optic was just on another level this tournament compared to them. Optic comes out and 3-0s them. I don't remember this series too specifically. I think it was. I don't think it was pretty close. I think Optic handled them pretty easily. Moving on to winners semis. Then you have LG versus TK again, another 3-0. Not sure what it is with this TK roster. They shine the first 2 events, winning both of them, and then they sort of burn out both at this event and in Atlanta. LG handles them pretty easily with a 3-0. That sets up your winner semis between Rise and Splice. Again, Rise ends up 3-0ing Splice. I don't remember this series. I didn't get a chance to watch this one. I don't remember if it was a close 3-0 or not, but a 3-0 is a 3-0. And Rise ended up taking care of business here. Moving on to winners finals. Then you had LG Optic. This was the one match that I wanted to see. I wanted to see how Optic was playing this tournament. LG comes out and beats them in a Game 5. LG ends up winning both S&Ds and the CTF. So a good way for LG to just clutch up in a series, get that real clutch win under their belt. Optic was good at hardpoint this tournament. They ended up taking both off of LG here. I don't think both of them were close at all. I'm pretty sure Optic handled them in both hardpoints pretty easily. So if LG can sort of bounce back and work on their hardpoint game, this series could have been a lot more lopsided in their favor. Then that sets you up for the lower bracket. We'll come back to the winners final here in a minute. So in your lower bracket, you had Echo Fox versus Ghost Gaming. Echo Fox handles them pretty easily, 3-0. You had Reckless versus TK. Reckless ends up beating TK in a Game 5 after they lose to LG. I'm going to go on paper, and I think this Reckless team, I don't know if they're making changes. I'm pretty sure it's confirmed that they're making changes, but this Reckless team was very, very, very consistent in Search and Destroy throughout their time teaming together, both in the Pro League and at open events. If it went to Game 5, this Reckless team was pretty damn consistent. Then you had Lightning Pandas. This team didn't even make pool play. This was Censor, Exotic, Royalty, and Goonjar. They ended up losing, I think, in their pool play qualification match, ended up going to losers round... It was the open bracket losers round 4, I think, which is top 40. They end up winning, I think, 7 rounds in a row. They beat teams like FaZe, EG. They beat Complexity, and they end up getting a top 8 placing. They end up beating FaZe here, probably the biggest upset of the tournament. So yeah, Doug comes out of open and gets a top 8 pro placing. So didn't really see that one coming. We're going to go ahead and talk about the event as a whole sort of after the placings and why I think that kind of happened. But yeah, let's go ahead and continue the lower background. So then you had Envy versus E6. Again, E6 coming out of open bracket, getting into pool plays, gets a solid top 12 placing here. I don't really think you can expect much more from this E6 roster. Abizi had one hell of a tournament. I know he was pretty consistent throughout all the respawns. I've seen this guy play online. over the last couple months, and he's been good, but he had a really insane tournament at Birmingham, so I'm excited to see what they can do. I know Sender had a pretty good tournament as well, and I'm happy to see Sender and Diabolic, sort of towards that top, I don't want to say top tier, but consistently placing in the top 16 again, because I always like those guys. They just seem super nice. So then you get losers round 5. You get Echo Fox versus Reckless. Again, Echo Fox coming in with a fill in this event. Get a nice top 8 placing. I think it was their best placing since Dallas. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was their best placing since Dallas, which is really good for them. Nagafen had a pretty good tournament. He didn't go off, but he didn't really play bad either. So consistent performances from Nagafen on this team. I'm not sure what he's going to do after Stage 1, if he's going to try to get on a league team. I don't even know if he's in the national circuit at all. But yeah, Reckless ends up beating them again in a close game 5 to face Splice in losers quarters, and then you had Envy beat Doug in a game 5. I think Lightning Pandas actually went up 2-1 in the series, and Envy ended up bringing it back, winning it in a game 5, which sets you up for an Optic Gaming versus Envy losers quarters and a Splice Reckless losers quarters. Splice end up pretty much handling Reckless very easily 3-0, and Optic end up taking out Envy, I think, in a game 4. I know the first game was a pretty big blowout in Envy's favor. I think the second S&D was a 6-5 or a 6-4. The CTF was pretty close. I think it was 1 flag. And then the last hard point was a 20-point hard point. So another very close series between Optic and Envy this event. They're going to end up facing, actually, in winners round 1 of the Stage 1 playoffs, which is just probably going to happen tonight if you're watching this on Friday. So, yeah, a very, very important matchup for both of those teams when it comes to how they're going to play against other top teams. That sets you up for a Splice versus Optic losers semifinal. In my opinion, I think either this or the grand final was the match of the tournament, man. This match was absolutely insane. There were so many clutch plays. The crowd was behind both Splice and Optic. You had players getting up and yelling at each other, getting vocal, getting hyped. This was insane. If you guys haven't seen the reactions of the map wins on Twitter, you're going to have to go ahead and watch that. Splice ends up coming out winning game 1. Optic wins game 5 in a round 11 after going up 5-1. Crim6 gets an insane 3-piece to end up putting Optic back to 1-1 in the lead. I'm pretty sure Optic then win the CTF to go up 2-1, and then they lose both the game 4 and the game 5. The game 5 was super close. I know Bance went the hell off. He had a fighter pilot last round and ended up getting 2 kills with that fighter pilot. And Splice ends up beating Optic in a game 5 here, knocking Optic out in a 4th place finish. Now, if you go back to winner's bracket here, you had Rise versus LG. Again, this for me was the most. I think this was the match who was going to determine who was going to win this event. Rise and LG, in my opinion, are probably the top 2 teams in the game right now when it comes to just consistently playing well across all 3 game types. Rise ends up losing this in a game 5. Rise, your defending LG champions, end up getting knocked down to the lower bracket. LG clutches up in a game 5. I think it was Valkyrie S&D. I want to say they won 6-4 or 6-5. But it was a crazy series, man. And it just shows you how good competition is nowadays when you have just so many game 5s over and over and over again. So that ends up meaning that Rise and Splice play in the losers finals. Splice ends up beating Rise after a crazy win over Optic 3-1, and that sets up a Luminosity versus Splice grand final. Now, what was interesting before this grand final is that Splice and LG had already played each other. Splice had beaten LG in pool play. They were both in the same pool. Splice ended up coming out in the first series and absolutely smoking LG. They beat them 3-1, take the first series in the grand final, and then they lose the second series. Now, LG end up winning Birmingham here. I'm super happy for those guys. I'm a huge fan of all of those guys on that team. I think that this team has potential, but what's interesting for me is that Splice actually ended up having a better win record versus LG in this tournament. They ended up winning 2 series as opposed to LG only beating them once this whole tournament. Interesting sort of series to me, just the way it played out. So you could technically say overall, Splice was a better team than LG this tournament, but just because the way the tournament sort of figured out or played out, LG ended up winning grand finals. So I'm not saying that Splice is a better team than LG. I just thought that was interesting that Splice ended up beating LG two times as opposed to LG only beating them once, and LG gets that championship because of the way the tournament is set up. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now we're gonna have to talk about the issues at the event. I can't go this podcast without talking about this. So players were pretty vocal on Twitter and on social media this last weekend about the monitor situation. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with how MLG runs their tournaments, MLG runs the CWL tournaments that are in North America, and Activision actually did not want them, or they didn't. I'm not saying they didn't want them, but they didn't have them run this Birmingham tournament. They actually had a company called Multiplay do it, and production-wise, the tournament was fine. I think there were a few audio issues here and there, but I think that the production was pretty well. It was pretty good. The desk looked really good. The main stage was pretty cool. The only issue that most of these players had was the fact that different monitors were being used. Now, if you guys are unfamiliar with how the tournament is set up in like the open events in North America, every player uses a BenQ monitor. 95% of players use Scuf gaming controllers. Some use other off brands like Battle Beaver and that kind of stuff. But everyone uses a BenQ monitor. The issue with this event is because MLG wasn't actually running it, Multiplay had a different monitor here. They had something called an Iyama monitor. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, if it's Iyama, Iyama, Iyama. I'm not really entirely sure. It's a company based in China. The monitors actually had the same specs and everything as the BenQ monitors. They were both full HD, 1 millisecond response time, all the main things you're going to need for a gaming monitor. It actually had 160 hertz refresh rate to them. Now, I'm not sure if the monitors were set to that this weekend or what the refresh rates were set to, but the issue with the way that Multiplay set this up is that, one, it sort of just creates an unfair competition, in my opinion. When players are so used to playing on a certain setup, they're going to get used to the way the monitor looks, the settings on the monitor, that kind of stuff. When they have to go across the country or across the world and play on a completely different setup that they really have never played on before, it really just comes down to a battle of who adapts to that monitor faster. And we saw that throughout the weekend. Your AR players, your top tier AR players, Methods, Rated, Slasher, we're all realistically getting horked on for the first day of the tournament. I'm pretty sure Rated finished a hard point with like 8 or 9 kills, which he really never did during stage 1. Methods was pretty vocal on Twitter. Slasher was pretty vocal on Twitter. Hell, even Scump, who doesn't even run an AR and was playing pretty damn well this tournament, was pretty vocal on Twitter. This was sort of, I don't want to say unacceptable, but if you put it into like a real sports sort of argument, if you're a tennis player, you're going to practice with the same racket that you're going to use in game. You use that racket over and over and over again until you get used to it. Here comes tournament time, and you have to use a completely different racket. Yes, you're still going to be very good at tennis because you have all the basics down, but it's a completely different environment because you're forced to use a sort of different tool when it comes to how you're going to actually play the game. So you're not going to get the best out of both teams when it comes to who's actually playing better, especially at the start of the tournament. As the tournament went on and players were getting used to these monitors, yeah, you could say the tournament was fair then, but like all day Friday, Saturday morning, it's tough for me to judge this tournament just because of the way that the setups were. Now, I'm not sure if this had a huge effect on most of the players. I just know some were pretty vocal about how it really affected them. You can see that in their gameplay. I mean, I think Slasher had like a 0.8 in respawn the first couple days, and he's really never dropped those numbers in this game yet. So, definitely an interesting perspective from the tournament just to think about. I'm not really saying that this tournament doesn't count because of the way the monitors were using. LG definitely won the tournament fair and square. It's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Stage 1 now. So as you can see on your screen right now, here is your Stage 1 playoffs winner bracket. Now, this for me is going to be the tournament of the year so far. There is so much competition just stacked in this one bracket. Realistically, any one of these teams can win any one of these series, and I honestly would not be surprised here. We've seen Rise beat E United this year. We've seen E United beat Rise this year. We've seen LG beat Red. We've seen Red beat LG. Optic has had MB's number this year, but all of those series have been pretty close. FaZe and TK have both beaten each other this year, so this bracket is going to be insane, and it is literally impossible for me to predict because it all comes down to vetoes and who ends up shooting hotter on the day. You could get the Envy who come out and smoke Optic 250-90 in a hard point, or you could get the Optic who handles Envy in pool play. You can come out and get the LG who win Birmingham, or the Red at Dallas or at Atlanta who end up getting to grand finals. So this for me is going to be an impossible prediction. I'm just going to give you guys who I think is going to end up winning the tournament and like placing higher than the other teams consistently, just based off of their recent performances. So clearly, I think you can say now across all three game types that Rise and LG are probably the most consistent when it comes to just performing well. Rise and LG, I think, stand above the rest of the pack right now. I think Rise and LG, like I said, are your favorites. And if they were on opposite sides of the bracket, I would pretty much pick them to get to winners finals. But since they might meet in winners semis, it's going to be hard for them to both get in grand finals. Going through that losers bracket after losing is very tough. So I'm going to give the top 8 now. I think you're going to see Rise end up winning here. I think Rise consistently, like I said, over all three game types is probably the most consistent team in the game. I know Looney and TJ had really rough tournaments at Birmingham, and I don't expect them to have tournaments like that here at Stage 1 playoffs. I know TJ was one of the more vocal pros when it came to the monitor situation, and just him being back on a BenQ is just going to give him a lot more mental fortitude when it comes to playing well. I think you're going to see Optic finish second here. I think this is Optic's tournament to finish second. I think they're going to start to slowly move up in the rankings when it comes to how they play. And I think that you're going to see them play well. I think Rise, like I said, I think you got Rise, Optic. After that, it's tough, man, because I know that the way this bracket is going to play out is that, see, I don't even know, dude. I could realistically see, like I said, any one of these teams winning this event, I wouldn't be shocked. I just think consistently you're going to see Rise, Optic, LG be your top 3 teams consistently. After that, you sort of got to throw FaZe, Envy, sort of into your 4th and 5th slot. 5, 6, 7, I think you got to go Red, TK, E United. Now, I'm not sure if those placings are possible with this bracket. I haven't gone through the whole bracket. But I think that's where you sort of got to rank teams now. You got Rise and LG at number 1 and 2. I think Optic is behind them at number 3. After that, I think FaZe and Envy are pretty even when it comes to how good they are right now. And then after that, it's a toss-up. You got E United, Red, TK. But the thing is, like, E United, Red, and TK can beat Rise and LG, and I wouldn't be shocked. Like, if you think about it, Splice ended up getting to grand finals of the last tournament. And they're not even going to be at this tournament because they didn't qualify. That's how crazy the competition is nowadays. Like I said, any of these teams can beat each other. I think it would be stupid for any of these teams to make roster changes, especially with how good their team can be. I think all of these teams have the potential to win an event this year. Of course, there's not enough events for all of them to win, but they could definitely have the possibility. So that's pretty much going to be it for podcast number 2. I tried to keep it pretty short because I know that Hot Mike's on after this. So thank you guys for tuning in. Still haven't come up with a name yet. I've been thinking of stuff like Playing the Objective or The Objective or something like that. Something to do with The Objective. Yeah, but any questions, go ahead and leave them in the description below. I'll be sure to make sure to answer them in the next video. I'm going to try to get a guest on next week's podcast as well, because I want to have someone to talk to. I love talking about competitive Call of Duty, and I think that having someone to rebound my ideas off of will be very good. So thank you guys for tuning in. Peace out.